Hey, Passion, what's up? I'm Aaron, this is Stacy, and we're the Duckwers.
Or the Ducks, as people here like to call us.
Thank you so much for joining us.
If you guys have ever had the chance to join us here on a Sunday morning, you know it is loud, people are chatting, catching up with their weeks, and we would love for that to happen in the comment section throughout the service. So please feel free to communicate with us that way.
And hey, if you're new, feel free to go to passioncincy.com/connect. It's a great way for us to know that you are here, and it's a great way for us to communicate with you throughout the week.
We did want to give you guys a heads up that we are changing our online service times. They're going to now be at 9 a.m., 11 a.m., and 9 p.m.
And so parents, if you wake up and Sundays are just a little crazy for you, feel free to join us at the 9.
We are so excited. This week we are starting a new sermon series called My Passion Story. And in these stories, they're going to highlight what God is doing in people's lives in passion and through passion.
And this week, Pastor MP had the privilege to sit down with Ryan and Jamie Young. And I know we're excited to hear about their stories, so feel free to worship with us.
Let's lean in, open our hearts, and sing together.
I've only seen a love full of conditions, hiding with the fear that it could break. I've searched the world to get a taste of heaven, but all along it was heaven chasing me. Your love is the real thing. It's the real thing. It's the air I breathe. Your love has got a hold on me, and it's holding me. It is everything. It's the real thing. Grace is more than just an obligation. You give without a promise of return. Your mercy looks beyond my reputation. For I belong in heaven's destiny. Yes, I belong in heaven's destiny. Your love is the real thing. It's the real thing. It's the air I breathe. Your love has got a hold on me, and it's holding me. It is everything. It's the real thing. I cannot run it. I can't explain it. I don't deserve it. Jesus, your love for me, it's not complacent. It's always chasing. It won't abandon. Jesus, your love for me, it's not disappointing. Won't leave me wanting. It's overwhelming. Jesus, your love for me. I know I need it. I know it's worth it. The cross, it proves it. Jesus, your love for me. Your love is the real thing. It's the real thing. It's the air I breathe. Your love has got a hold on me, and it's holding me. It is everything. Your love is the real thing. It's the real thing. It's the air Your love has got a hold on me, and it's all in me. It is everything.
Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Amen. Amen. Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace.
May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May
Hey, Passion, what's going on? MP here, and I'm one of the pastors at Passion, and I'm so thankful that you guys are here joining us as I'm hanging out with the Youngs for a Passion story. We have got a really, really cool 3 weeks coming up where you're going to learn a little bit more about the people of Passion. And so I just want to say welcome, guys. How y'all doing?
Hey, thanks. Good to see you, MP. We're doing
Dude, good seeing you guys too. Obviously, I have known you guys for like 4+ years now, from the first time you guys came to Passion and started, and we ended up at BW3s, I think. Is that right? Yep, very cool. But some of the people here at Passion might not know anything about you. So, like, I'd love to just start off there. How did you guys find Passion? And actually, before that, let me ask a little bit about your family. Who are you guys? Your kids? Where do you serve at Passion? People are probably like, I kind of think I know them, but where have people seen you before?
Sure. So my name's Ryan, and if I do my job right, you hopefully don't see me serving. That's how I like it. Typically in the back at the light booth, and I've been there actually since the very first service, back on the tech team. So, yeah.
And then I'm Jamie. You probably recognize me from guest experience or the worship team. I also served in kids for a while. I started in the nursery. And then we have our son will be 5 in August, and he's in preschoolers. And our daughter just turned 3, and she is in the walkers. Hopefully we can eventually get her out of diapers into preschoolers as well.
Very cool. Well, how did you guys find Passion?
Sure. So we were kind of sort of looking for a new church. We weren't being active about it, but we didn't really feel fulfilled where we were. It was just kind of, it was the church you had grown up in, and it was just where we went. And the previous worship director was our best friend, Dan, and he and his wife just said, hey, just to support us, come check it out one day. So we came to one of the first, and it was not the first, but one of the first launch meetings for Passion. And it was the day that we got the keys to the building where we're still in for the first time. So we came, and I was really kind of unsure about the whole thing, a lot of trepidation about it, and not sure, like, if this is where we want to do I want to go to a new church or not? Do we want to, as a family, go to a new church? And in about 3 minutes after Andy started talking, and then we walked out, I was like, yes, let's do it. I'm all in. And then we went to the building for the first time, and I'm ashamed to admit this now, but we sang Good, Good Father in a circle around just where that center pole is now. There's nobody,
still there,
nothing else there. And then, like you said, went to B-Dubs after that. So we were invited personally by somebody on the launch team, and have been going ever since.
Very cool. And just to barely rewind a little bit, I do want to hear, because we've talked a little bit as we prepared for today about some of your past church experiences and kind of that path. So just very briefly, if you could give us a little bit about like your past church experience and what that was like.
So when we first started dating, I announced to Ryan on our 3rd date that if we were going to date, he had to come to church with me. And he said, okay. So we were attending a church at the time. I was actively serving at the time. And then we made the decision to get an apartment together before we were married. Looking back, probably wasn't the best decision, but it was what we did at the time. And I was no longer permitted to serve in the position that I was.
Okay.
And I was actually removed from many serving emails at all. And so we kind of floated around for a while. We ended up back at the church that I grew up at just because we felt like we needed to be somewhere. But he's right, we weren't really, we weren't serving, we didn't really have a community. It was people that knew me as Little Jamie and nothing more. And nobody really knew him, and so it was difficult for us to kind of feel connected or feel involved. And that first day at Passion, we walked in, and our son was 10 days old.
Yeah.
And Teresa Beck said, baby. and then we went to B-Dubs after, and we were treated like family from the second we walked in the door. And we talked about fantasy football with Andy, and we were just
Dan Hansen.
and Dan Hansen. And we were just completely blown away by that. And because at the time we were not married.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to go to a new church and say, hi, we live together, we have a baby, we're not married. And so
Yeah, those kind of those taboos that
Yeah.
don't seem welcome in church. And I want to circle back around to church and kind of where we've come from since then. But before that, a big theme from everything that we've been talking about as we've prepared has been this idea, and we kind of came up with like this idea of like walking through the wilderness, right? Or and I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate with a lot of the things that you guys have walked through. And so I just want to dive in, and I know that this is hard, and I want to say thank you guys for doing this. And church family, you know, you don't know how tough this is to get recorded, just talking about all of the hard things that you've been through. So just give them tons of love and grace when you see them, and let them know how much you appreciate everything that they are doing. But I do want to get into it, and so Jamie, we've talked a lot about the impact of depression, anxiety, even like ideas of self-harm. And so I just want you to share, and if you want, you can even just share with the people like your journey, and share with me your journey through depression, anxiety, ideas of self-harm.
Yeah, thank you. I'm probably gonna cry. So, about 6.5 years ago, I was hospitalized. I was placed on a 72-hour hold for suicide watch, and then I went to a mental health facility for 11 days. I had undiagnosed depression, anxiety for years before that, and some things in my life kind of exploded, and everything came to a head, and I just lost the will to do anything and to live. And I called my mom and I said, I'm done with life, and that's it. And thankfully she listened, and I went back to their house and called the hotline, which I would highly recommend to anyone who is having thoughts of like that. And I ended up checking myself into a hospital. And it's something I still struggle with. I kind of went back and forth with different medications and different therapies, and different doctors. But thankfully, today, I'm on a pretty decent regimen, and the community that we have at Passion has made a huge impact on my mental health.
Yeah. Well, obviously, you know that we're so very thankful that you are here, and we love everything about and all the ways that you helped me with guest experience. So thank you for that, and thank you for sharing. And and then Ryan, as a fellow veteran, I know that there's going to be a lot of people that can relate to the idea of like a battle with PTSD and those things. And so I'd like to hear just a little bit about that journey and kind of maybe up to the time of coming to Passion, maybe not past that yet, but just that experience. And tell them what branch you are in.
Yeah, so I was in the Army, and we absolutely let the Marines go out and eat the dirt ahead of us. But I was a combat medic in the Army, and I was deployed to Iraq in 2006, 2007, spent most of my time in Ramadi and Fallujah. So a lot of people who don't know anything about Iraq still know about those places, just because, the joking thing we called it was the wild, wild west out there. So when you're going through that, you are on a hair trigger. It's live or die every second, and that's very healthy and a normal response when you're in that. And I struggle a lot with being able to turn that off when I got back. I felt useless if I wasn't in combat. I didn't know what to do. Hyper vigilant, just super aware, to the point where I did not used to be somebody who was anxious, and if I was not actively involved in something like 100% all in all the way, I just, anxiety took hold. Your fears get to you, and it's embarrassing. So I ended up being medically retired from the Army, and I sat in my room for about a year and a half, and limited my interaction with people as much as possible, and with experiences or things as much as possible. I finally had enough of it and realized that what I was doing was unhealthy, and that it was going to lead me to a path that I didn't want to go to. I will not say that I was strong or smart or anything. I got lucky and just said, hey, this is not what I want, and I tried to just basically take care of it myself, and went back into the world, I guess. So started working at Target. Jamie was my boss at the time. The first time we met, it was right before Black Friday. I was walking in front of the cashier registers. She called me. I didn't hear her. She put her arm on me, and I flipped her into an arm bar, and she said, "Oh my gosh!" And I said, "Sorry, I just got out of the Army, I had PTSD." She goes, "It's okay, I'll just never touch you again." So she normally tells that story holding one of our kids and said, "Well, that didn't work."
Yeah.
And she just kind of refused to let me isolate myself.
Yeah.
Obviously I've talked to you, to a lot of the other vets and stuff at Passion, to a lot of people whose viewpoints I respect, and I am further along than I was, but still a work in progress, dealing with that.
Yeah, and I think that that's what we're going to find is that all of these things, these wildernesses that we walk through, are going to be things that you only partially come out of. And the last thing is just this idea of you guys have struggled a little bit, and you've had these really, really tough moments of miscarriages and struggles with pregnancy and things like that. And I think that the cool thing about what we're going to be talking about, or what we have been talking about, is that many of you have the same struggles. Either you have had them, you do have them, and this is going to be a similar story to the one that many of you have already gone through. And so, but just real quick about that, I know that we're going to loop back around to finding passion and all of those healing things, but kind of the last wilderness to go through, which I know is tough. But if you guys could just kind of tell us about that journey a little bit.
So before I met Ryan, prior to my hospitalization, I was dating someone else. I was not active in a church at all. I had a miscarriage, and I didn't tell a soul. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed because I wasn't married, because I wasn't really in an active relationship, and that is what led to my hospitalization directly. And when I remember talking to my family members and my friends and telling them that's what I experienced, and everyone was completely shocked that I hadn't mentioned it. And so that was something that I had always struggled with. I was also told by my doctor growing up that I have what's called polycystic ovarian syndrome, which can make fertility difficult. It's something a lot of women struggle with. And I was told that I had a less than 12% chance of ever conceiving naturally. And so I've always wanted to be a mother, and that was devastating for me.
Yeah.
Actually, when we first started dating, I told him, probably can't have kids, so if you got to be okay with that. And then we had our son.
Yeah.
Surprise. And he's wonderful. And then after we had our son, we got married, and then we decided to have another child, and we prayed about it, and we were trying, and it worked right away, and we got pregnant right away, and everything was great. And then I had a miscarriage at work, and we were farther along this time, and it was hard. It was violent, and it was traumatic, and it was messy, and it was difficult because I am very much a 2 on the Enneagram.
Okay,
I everyone to be happy all the time, and so it was hard for me to watch my husband struggle because he couldn't fix it.
Yeah.
And that was hard for me, and it was painful, and it was tough. So it's been a struggle for us. I mean, we have Rowan now, which is great, and she's our little tiny fairy child, and it's awesome. But it was a struggle for us, for sure.
Yeah, and I think, and that kind of takes us through all of these things. And then the whole idea of a passion story is, I was this, or we were this, and now we're this. And this is how, specifically, this is how Jesus has changed our life. Or this is how Jesus, along with passion, has changed our life. And so I want to hear more about that and get into like some of the really cool stuff and the growth that we've seen. We've known each other so long now. And as we've been talking, I've heard so many amazing stories about the ways that our passion people have lived out Scripture, have lived out just what it means to really be the body of Christ with you guys. So what are some ways, like what makes passion different, or what are a couple stories of ways that passion people came around you and you were like, oh, this place is different. They actually believe what they say they believe.
We talked about how we were at another church. Jamie was serving there actively, and we were getting an apartment together. So they said, no. But they didn't say, no, this is wrong because X, Y, or Z, or because God says this or the Bible says that. They said, you guys can't do that. But if you give us $75, we can marry you and make the problem go away. There was never any talk of sin. There was never any talk of this is against what God says. There's never any talk of we want what's best for you. It was we can do this for you so this problem goes away. And that was really what pushed us away from the church we were at and back to her childhood church and looking for stuff. And I guess the exact opposite happened. Like Jamie said, when we walked in the first day, Teresa Beck went, baby! And you and Z and Dan Hansen and everybody on the launch team and everybody since then, Passion, the family, just surrounded us. And as we got into the community groups, we were in the original group when it was
OG,
Deer Park
our OG
before
group,
it
yeah.
split, and I think it's on its 37th split at this point.
Yeah.
And it was always just, well, hey, when are you guys getting married, or why this and why that? And it was never a we think less of you. It was a we think a lot of you and want you to be in line with what the Bible says.
Yeah.
It was a growth period for us because
Yeah.
I think when we started at Passion, we were comfortable with where we were. We had a child. We knew we were going to be together for the rest of our lives. I mean, he's pretty great. But we didn't have any date in mind. We had no future plans, and we were comfortable. And so it wasn't approached as a way of you're doing something wrong. It was more of a this is the next step for you. And so I think it was a combination of baby dedication and Teresa Beck, always Teresa Beck. But she said, well, why not?
Yeah.
Was the question that she asked. It wasn't a why aren't you doing this? It was why not?
Yeah.
And and so we weren't even engaged when we started at Passion. And then all of a sudden we were, and then we got married on Wednesday.
Yeah, and just so happens that today
Is
is
our anniversary. Yeah.
Hey!
So, we've been married for 4
What
years
a cool
today.
thing.
So
What a cool, and we didn't plan that. I didn't even know that. I knew it when we were sitting here, right?
We originally planned this, pre-COVID-19,
Yeah.
so this was supposed to take place there, and
It
it's
would've
just one
been
of those
before.
perfect God's timings things.
I
Yeah.
totally forgot. It's fine. Normally it's the guy that forgets. I forgot.
Yeah, but it's just so funny how God works these things out. That we are here on the anniversary of the day that you guys said, like, all right, we're all in. We're gonna do this the way that God wants us to do it, because and I don't think you did it out of any guilt. I think you did it because you started to see that, oh, these people they want what's best for us. This is what they believe is best for us, and so they're just asking us to kind of like step up into our
Kind of
own thing, if that makes
crystallization
sense.
point of it, and you touched on it briefly, was baby dedication. So we were dedicating Finley. It was the first baby D we had done at Passion, and it said on the slides, because you were helping with them at the time, it said Ryan Young and Jamie Laurie. And she said, I don't want to go up in front of our church family and not be a family and not have it on there. So that was Monday. She called me. I was at work, and I said, oh, okay. She said, do you want to get married this week? And I said, okay. She said, how about Wednesday? I said, sure. So we were already engaged at this point. So she didn't,
Yes.
propose and then marry me in 3 days. So I went and took a long lunch and got a marriage license, and we got married at Passion, actually.
Yeah.
It was
One of the only weddings ever at the Passion Building.
It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
my family, her family, the Pecks, and Finley was there, and he bumped his head on the drum cage and threw up on the floor, and it was perfect.
Yeah.
So that was just the crystallization point, is that we want to dedicate our son and put him in front of the church that has become our family as a family the way that God intends.
That's great.
So that's the one, and then the second. So as we discussed, I've had some issues with PTSD. We were both at Target. Jamie left for health reasons. I couldn't deal with it anymore. Got isolated. Wasn't working. And neither of us were working actually when we came here. I had gotten some back pay from the Army
Yeah.
from being medically retired, and that's what we were living off of. And
Yeah.
neither of us were working. I actually pulled this part, and I want to read it because it's a perfect description of Passion living out what we say we're going to live out.
Yeah.
So Jamie was working part-time. I had just gotten a full-time job offer. again through somebody in the church. So we prayed about it, looked for an opportunity. We were, destitute, and through somebody in the church got a full-time job offer. Only problem is Jamie's at home with the kid, Finley, and also working part-time. I don't have any way to get there. So
we only had one vehicle.
we only
Yeah,
had one
gotcha.
vehicle.
Yep.
So in Acts 2, 44 and 45, it says, all the believers were together and had everything in common. Selling their possessions and goods, they gave to anyone as he had need. So that's awesome. And that's like us living in community. And I know you as the connections guy,
Yeah.
like
Love community. Yeah, I didn't know that story until we talked,
that
actually.
is what you're
Yeah.
about. So my story is directly that, but the opposite. So we literally had somebody not sell their goods so that they could share it with us. So one of the people in our community group was getting ready to sell a vehicle, had already agreed to sell it, and then told the person, hang on, we need it for a while till they figure something out, and basically just gave us the vehicle
That's
to
amazing.
use
Yeah.
so that I could, get a full-time job.
Yeah, so it's not just like saying, "Oh, I believe this," but they were like,
They
"No, we're going to
literally
live this
lived
out."
it out.
Yeah,
Like, pulled
which
the
is
money out of
biggest
their own
idea.
pocket and said, take it and use it as long as you need it. We believe in you. We support you.
And it wasn't even something we asked for. He
Yeah.
just called Ryan and said, here's the keys. When
Yeah.
do you need it?
Which is just amazing. That's an awesome story. So I think just to wrap this kind of part of our talk up, what I'd love to hear is just the difference. And this is something we talked about because it's not formulaic. It's not like that you used to not be a part of Passion. So like no Passion plus bad things equals this, but it's, and now you are a part of Passion and now there's no bad things. It's not that. It's not formulaic, but there is a difference in what happens. And so what I'd love to hear is like, and I kind of did write it out as a formula, you've got like wilderness plus isolation equals what? And then wilderness plus community or connection equals what? And how would you guys answer that? What do you think the difference is?
I think for me, wilderness plus isolation for me almost ended my life. I mean, I had a miscarriage. I wasn't telling anyone. I wasn't leaning on my friends. And I ended up in the hospital on suicide watch. I wanted to end my life.
Wow.
And I know you talked about how, now that we're in Passion, everything's sunshine and rainbows, and it's
Yeah.
great. So we actually had our third miscarriage
Yeah.
2 months ago. And this was probably by far the toughest one yet. I saw on the screen that there was a child. And it had little tiny arms and little tiny legs, and
Yeah.
there was no heartbeat. And I had to have a procedure to end the pregnancy. And that was really, really hard. But the first thing we did when we found out is we reached out to our community. And we reached out to our community group, and I reached out to some other friends that we have from Passion that are great friends, but we forged a new relationship with them now because of that. And, we still struggle. It's still, obviously, it's something that I still cry about, and we still feel the loss. But I still want to be alive.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And so I think for us, that's the biggest thing is when we chose to isolate ourselves, we stopped going to community group for a while because it was too much and it was too stressful and we had too much going on, and we saw the drastic change in our lives.
So we talked about like seasons of wilderness and isolation, and I think we've gone through some of that at Passion too. Not that we're abandoned or anything, but because of our own feelings of shame or guilt or inadequacy, all the fear and the stuff that the enemy wants you to feel, so you pull away from that. We did, and stuff got rough. It was not to the extent that it was, but it was. We were not in a good place. We just weren't happy, weren't fulfilled, and chose to go back into community and into community groups, and the difference is stark. So it's not, everything is great and fixed, but so Jamie's kind of battle is the depression and self-harm and those thoughts, and mine is I feel unused, inadequate, and I withdraw. I think the biggest thing about trying to live in community, and I call it the Passion family. I know you guys call it, but Passion is our family, and our community group and our core of people in Passion is absolutely just as much my family as anyone who was born into my family.
Yeah.
And I have kind of grown to, when I feel those feelings, reach out. So when I feel like I need to isolate or want to run and want to hide, I reach out to people now.
That's so good. So obviously we would be foolish to think that a lot of people watching aren't walking through right now some of the same things. And so kind of just to close out our time together, I wanted to just give you guys like 30 to 60 seconds, literally just like if there's someone out there struggling with the same things that you guys have been talking about, what would you tell them? 30 or 60 seconds each, and just kind of give them, like talk right to them because we know they're watching.
I would say that a phrase that I hate is, it's going to get better. It might not for a while. It might be rough for a long time, but it's better to be rough in community than it is to be rough by yourself. There are people at this church, there are people watching this right now who will be there for you at the drop of a hat. And whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's a loss of a job, whether it's a loss of a child, whether it's a struggle to have a child, there is someone watching who is experiencing the same thing that you are, and that is a community. And if that's something you want to talk to someone about, I will be your community.
Yeah.
I wanted to start with Philippians 3, starting in 12, verse 12. It says, "Not that I have already obtained this, I have already been made perfect, but I press on to take hold of that which Christ Jesus took hold of me. Brothers, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining towards what is ahead." So obviously in PTSD and everything like that, I've dealt with all the depression and just feeling useless and miserable and being afraid to start. And one of the best things that was ever said to me is, turn your stumbling blocks into stepping stones. So don't be afraid that you have to be perfect. You don't have to have attained it. You will never attain it. You will never get perfection. Your job is to take the small steps, take the things that are hindering you, and take that next step forward. Without passion and without reaching out to the people in community here and having them love on us and surround us with that, I wouldn't be where I am today. So take small steps forward and don't be afraid to try.
Yeah, that is so good. I do hope that you guys heard their story, you heard what they're doing, and that you've been able to connect with it. And I think even if it's not you, we're all impacted by something that they said. So take this story, take this time, and share it. Share this video with people. Tell them you'll watch it with them. Tell them that you will walk alongside of them. I am the connections guy, so I love the idea of that. And it just really made me think of the way that we are connected with people. And I think there are so many things we could take from their story, and I just want to focus on just a few of them with you here today. As I was thinking about their story, the thing that came to mind, and you're going to have to stick with me here, is the Golden Gate Bridge. I don't know how much you know about the Golden Gate Bridge, but I didn't know anything. But for some reason, that image just started coming to mind. And so I started to do a little research, and it's really interesting. It took 80,000 miles of wire to create the main cables that hold up the Golden Gate, the Golden Gate Bridge. Each cable is about 7,659 feet long, and they contain 27,572 parallel wires. Now, if these wires were unwound, they would be able to wrap around the earth 3+ times. That's amazing. So much metal went into it. And the towers that you see in all of the pictures that go down into the water and stretch out, they are 746 feet tall, and they have about 600,000 rivets. Actually, each rivet has to be replaced once it gets rusty. So I'm guessing that's one guy's job. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to be the guy who has to take out the rivets. You climb up, you take out all the rivets, put in the new ones, and then basically I think you just climb down and start it again. And they put the Golden Gate Bridge on a diet in 1987, and they actually reduced the weight down to just right at 887,000 tons. So it's just a ton of metal. And while all of this stuff about when it was made and how it was made and even the safety, if you do some research, you'll be amazed at some of the things that they came up with while working on the Golden Gate Bridge. But that's not really what I want to talk about. there are these two towers, and they hold most of the weight. Some of it goes on the anchorage points, these huge pieces of concrete that are on each side. And what's really, really interesting is that if you remove any piece of the support structure, the whole thing is going to fall apart. And this got me thinking about Galatians 6. And in Galatians 6, Paul writes, "Brothers, if someone is caught in a sin, you who are spiritual should restore him gently. But watch yourself, or you also may be tempted. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself." And there's just a few things that I want you guys to kind of recognize about this. And one is that word restore. In the first verse it says, if someone is caught in a sin, you who are spiritual should restore him gently. And in the Greek, that word, it carries with this idea of restoring a joint or resetting a joint. And so I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I'm guessing that no one would want, if their shoulder got popped out of place, to just be jamming that thing back in there with no regard, or only making it halfway in, or any of those things. And so what we learned, I hope what you heard from their story, was that when someone is in an area, when they're living in a way that's not honoring God, and you don't think that it's healthy for them, the way to help them is not to come along and just ram it down their throat or jam their joints back in place to make it painful. That doesn't make them want to come and be with you. It doesn't mean that you let them live and keep going with a dislocated shoulder. That's not what it means. But you reset it gently. And the next thing that I want you to see is that we should carry each other's burdens. And this is what brought to mind the Golden Gate Bridge. And in this way you fulfill the law of Christ. And you might be asking, well, what is the law of Christ? For that, we have to go back to Matthew 22. And in this period, the Pharisees are trying to trick up Jesus. And so they ask him the question, "Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law?" And Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself." Now listen to this. This is pretty cool. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. Now that got me thinking of those two big towers with all those rivets, and how this huge wire was built. It took years to build, and they hang it on this thing, and those two towers take most of the weight from the suspension of this bridge. And maybe you could think of these two things, these two commandments that Jesus said. And he said that on these two commandments you hang all the law and the prophets. It's like everything that we do hangs on loving the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind, and loving your neighbor as yourself. And at Passion, I kind of started to think through the imagery of the Golden Gate Bridge, and I just kind of see us as that big wire that it takes time to create all of the connections and the people. But once we're connected, as long as we stay connected to those two commandments, we will not fall. And so I've got just a couple of challenges for you guys. Number one, I already told you, and that is share this message. If you know someone who's struggling with any of the issues or any of these wildernesses, as we're calling them, that the Youngs were so brave to share with us, share this video with them. Let them see that they're not alone, and that there are people out here willing to help. And the second challenge is to concentrate on staying connected to the unity of Christ. Guys, we have got to love each other in a way that we would want to be loved, and we have to love our God. If you get too much of just loving God, I think you become like a Pharisee. You're so righteous, and you have no love for anyone who doesn't love God as much as you. But the opposite is also a problem. If you only love people, you're never going to set them the truth. Now you've got all these people walking around with dislocated joints. And so it only works. The bridge only stays together. Passion only stays above the water if we're able to come together, support each other. And here's what happens. Here's what's amazing. In 1987, at the anniversary of the opening of the Golden Gate Bridge, 300,000 people crowded onto the bridge, And for the first time in history, and maybe ever, some people say it's never happened since, the bridge actually flattened out because it has this beautiful arch to it. It actually flattened out, and people thought, oh no, this thing's going to fall. And here's what's great. The thing is built in a way, it's so strong that it wasn't even close. People did the math, all these engineer types, you know who you are, not me. I can't explain it to you, but here's what I know. I can read you numbers, and here's what they said. They said that the bridge is built in a way that it can handle 5,700 pounds per every foot, linear foot of the bridge. The bridge is long, so it can handle a whole bunch of weight. And even with all those people on it, it was designed to sway. Here's what happens. As things come and as pandemics come and all of the things that we're going through and all these hardships, all these wildernesses that we walk through, the wind will blow and the bridge, it can move 27 feet laterally. I don't know, I wouldn't want to drive on that when it's doing that, but people do. It can sink 7 feet. Actually, it can drop over 12 feet, but it's built to withstand the pressure, and it's all based on these two towers and all the support structures being connected to that. And so my challenge to you is to love each other as you would want to be loved and to love God yourself. Thank you, guys. We love you. Please share this. Have a great day.
The chasm that lay between us, how high the mountain I could not climb. In desperation, I turned to heaven and spoke your name into the night. Then through the darkness, your loving kindness tore through the shadows of my soul. The work is finished, the end is written. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Who could imagine so great a mercy? What heart could fathom such boundless grace? The God of ages stepped down from glory to wear my sin and bear my shame. The cross has spoken. Jesus Christ, my living hope. Oh, hallelujah, praise the one who set me free. Hallelujah, death has lost its grip on me. You have broken every chain. There's salvation in your name, Jesus Christ, my living hope. Then came the morning that sealed the promise. Your buried body began to breathe, and out of the silence, the roaring lion declared the grave has no claim on me. Then came the morning
Thanks so much for worshiping with us today.
If you guys made the decision to begin a relationship with Jesus, we are so excited for you, and we would love it if you would let us know so that we can celebrate with you and walk alongside of you in that. So if you did, please text "I'm all in" to 94090.
And guys, thank you so much for your generosity. Without that, none of this would be possible. There are 4 ways to give: by mail, Passion Cincy app, PassionCincy.com, and now you can text "give" to the number below.
Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great week.